The Volume Podcast.
So my name is Gabriela de Queiroz, and I work at IBM as a machine learning manager. And I manage and lead a team of developers working on data and AI open source technologies. And my work is to democratize AI by building tools and launching new open source projects. And I'm very passionate about making data science available to everybody. And also the other piece of my work is being involved in the community. So I work with the technical piece, developing new projects, thinking about the vision, the strategy, the roadmap for my team, and also how can I get the community to go along, to go with us through this journey on the open source. So other than my regular full-time work at IBM, I work with another project which is related to community. So it's a community project. It's an organization called AI Inclusive, which is an organization to bring more diversity into AI. Because I've been working with AI and I was involved in a lot of discussions around the implications of AI algorithms on people's lives. And I was seeing a lot of discussion going on, especially here in the US, in our bubble, especially in Silicon Valley, California, and seeing a lot of lives being affected by this technology. And in other places, I'm from Brazil, for example, so I didn't see this kind of discussion happening back home in Brazil. People were not aware of these technologies. When I was going in there and talking about AI, they would think that it's a very futuristic thing, that it would take years and years and years and years to be there, to be part of their lives. And it's the opposite. It's already there. There is not only in your phone, in your camera, in your home devices, but it's all over. If you are going to the airport, if you are going to a shopping mall, if you are walking on the street, and seeing all that, I had this idea and this motivation to do something around this. So I want to educate people around this topic. I want people to be aware, because the community or the people that are going to be affected the most by these technologies are the underrepresented communities and underserved communities. So that's how I created the AI Inclusive Group, which our mission is to bring more diversity to AI, right? And just to finalize the AI Inclusive mission, we have several paths in a way, or several ways that we organize ourselves. Is we provide workshops, tutorials, so people can understand the technology, that they can understand the implications, they are aware of everything that is going on. And then we also want to empower them through technology so they can enter into the technology field in this new, especially in this new area that is probably new for a lot of folks. So we provide also workshops, more technical workshops. We have scholarships for data science boot camps, for example, for conferences, and several opportunities. So we are bringing all these communities to enter the tech field, more specifically the AI.
And you also created another community, a huge community called Our Ladies. So how did that happen? And if you can give us one example of Our Ladies' impact.
Yeah, Our Ladies is a great community, such a great organization. It was founded in 2012 by myself when, after moving from Brazil to San Francisco, this center of technology and new happenings, and it's an explosion of technology. I found out something called meetup.com, which is a website where you can sign up for several events, mostly around technology, right? So me as a data scientist, as a statistician by training, I started going to all these events every day, right? From trying to learn things that I didn't know before, but I knew that were important for a data scientist. So I would go to events to learn about languages, like programming languages, SQL or Hadoop or data visualizations, different ones. And one fun fact, because I was a student back then, is that all these meetups, they would offer food, right, for free. So for me, it was the best of the worlds, where I would learn for free. So I would have free knowledge and free food. So I would have dinner. My dinner was granted. I had my dinner every day. And then going to these events, one thing that caught my attention was the people in the audience, right? And even the people that were there in the front speaking, the majority of them were white male, and I didn't see myself in the audience. I was always in my corner, not asking questions, not networking. And then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, cool, this is all cool. I learned a lot. It's my time to give back, because the way that I think is, you get and then you give back. That's a cycle. You learn and then you share, and then you learn and then you share. And in this way, the whole community grow together. So I thought, why don't I create a group where I can share something that I know? But I didn't want to have just a general R group. I wanted to have an R group that I could see myself, that I could feel safe, that I could find other people, like very diverse audience, and where we could all create this community, this network, where we could share knowledge, we could learn with each other, where we could have this support system as well. And that's how Our Ladies was born. So that was 2012. Now we are pretty much all over the world, in almost 200 cities, more than 50 countries, and more than 80,000 members. So it's such a successful project and organization, right? And you asked me about a story or like if I have anything to share around how this community made an impact on someone's life. There are several cases, but there is one example that I always stick with me. Her name is Kathy, and she was a stay-home mom for over 10 years. And she was out of the workforce for that amount of time. And after her son was older, she decided to come back to the workforce. But before, she was not as working tech, but she knew that tech was the place to go, and data-related jobs were very hot, and there were a lot of them. So she decided to become a data scientist. That's what she wanted to become, but she didn't know how to start this journey, which is scary, right? You don't know, like nowadays there are several courses, but even having all these opportunities, you kind of like you feel lost where you should go. So then she heard about Our Ladies, and I think she participated in an Our Ladies event, and she fell in love by the community. And she's like, oh, why can't I create a chapter in my city, since there is no chapter in my city? And then I'll take the community with me, so I will learn with them and vice versa. So she started the chapter, and she would learn something and teach the community, and other folks would come and teach. So she learned a lot of all the techniques and the skills that she needed to get the first job. And then she got an internship as a data scientist a few months later. And nowadays she's leading a team of data scientists. So it's such like an impactful story. There are several others, but this one, it really stuck with me because it's so hard, especially when you are out of the workforce for so long. It's so hard to go back, especially to enter into the tech field.
And thinking about your life and everything that you've done so far, what do you think it's in you that drives you towards this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thinking back, even like the young Gabriela, she was always someone that would try to get people together. Like especially people that didn't know each other. I would always try to make these connections. And then in the end, like I would never go out with just one person. I would go out with a bunch of people, right? I would call everybody and let's get out together. So I was always, without noticing, I was always trying to get people together, to combine, to, trying to create this community around me. And looking back, I think was always with me, like this thing of like trying to have this community, even like back in school, thinking about when I had to study, right? I really enjoyed to study with a group. I would host study groups at my house, and I would go and sometimes I would explain things. I was also, another fun fact, I was also a private tutor for, I don't even know, like 15 years, right? So that helped me with the community as well. So like having the confidence to go out there and then talk about something or teach about something. The other fun fact is I worked with, as a music producer for a few years. So that also gave me skills that helped me with creating the community and talking to other folks and trying to get sponsorship and so on. So it is like, when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I did this. This was so helpful. And that was in me this whole time. And only when I look back is I realized that that was really a part of who I am.
How does like living this experience and seeing the community grow, and also, I mean, it's a community that grows around a language that works with data. So about data and about your work history, so how these two elements changed your vision of the world?
When I was working with data, I always thought about the human side of things, right? I don't think only like numbers and numbers and numbers. I think, numbers, and there is human also, like either the human behind the numbers that are collecting the numbers, or how the models that we are creating are going to affect the humans. So I think there is always this connection between the two. They cannot go without each other, right? And nowadays there is a whole discussion around this, right? That we should not kind of like trust the numbers. We should have a deeper look and also like thinking about, as I was saying before, the implications, like, is this number, what is the implication or the output of the model? Is this going to apply or going to discriminate part of the population? And so this is one example. So in my opinion, they come together. There is no way that you can separate data and people, right? They come together. When you are talking about data, you are also talking about people.
We talked about this before, and it's very interesting because everyone has a different point. So in your experience, how do you think data and everything that we're talking about may impact the life of whoever's listening to the podcast right now? So
the whole world is driven by data nowadays, right? Everything is driven by data. The next thing that you probably going to buy online, it was decided by some of the data that were collected. That are about you. They know about everything about you. They know where you are browsing from. They know your behaviors. They know the things that you like. So every little thing that you do nowadays, it's being tracked. So one example is the online shopping. So they know exactly, even before you know that you need it, they know that you will need it, right? So everything that you do is being tracked. Every possible next step that you are going to do, they already know, that the companies, the technology already know, right? And on the other side, when I talk about data, I always think that everybody should be aware or have some kind of like data literacy. You don't need to be in tech to understand what data is and the implications. You have to be a basic understanding. So one example is, when you are watching news, for example, there is always some graphs, some numbers. So you need to have the basic understanding. So even the fake news, that's another thing, right? So you have some like kind of like critical thinking is like, no, this is not correct. They are trying to convince me, but this is not correct. So I see this being more and more part of like education. For example, in the US, schools, when you are in high school, middle school, even elementary school, I guess, you have some classes around data and numbers and statistics on how to think about it. So by the time you leave school, you can read a newspaper, you can have this critical thinking, you know what those numbers mean, right? So it's kind of like, when you think about, you know, you learn another language, English, for example. Now you are learning another thing with the data literacy. You learn a little bit about how to interpret, like, or make meanings or these graphs meaningful to you, right? So that's another thing that everybody should be aware. There's another piece that is going to be even in the future, maybe in a few years, which is like learning how to program is going to be the next thing, right? That is going to be required to the majority of the people to know, to have this basic understanding. So after the data literacy is going to be something around the programming languages.
Another subject that I would like to touch, and it's completely related to your work, it's diversity. So how do you see diversity play a role in data?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to answer this two ways. The first one is kind of like present and past, and the second one is going to be more around the future. So we have seen a lot of like research and articles around, you know, why diversity is important, how you should make your team diverse, how you should have a diverse team of like not only like gender, ethnicity, race, background, cultural experiences in general, and so on, right? You have to have this kind of like mix of people in every team. And going back to the AI, like facial recognition, there are so many examples that one of the issues around this is that the data that was collected in the very beginning of this process was not representative of the whole population. They were very biased from the very beginning. So if they had a diverse team from the very beginning, probably the chances are that the data would be a little bit better than the ones that you had, right? And also like not only the data, but also thinking about later on, like when you create an algorithm or you have something that you are creating, you have to think about, is someone going to be affected by this? If so, who? And if you don't have this team together, this diverse team, you're probably not going to go through all the cases that this could be, you know, this could happen, or the implication could happen. So that's the kind of like the past and present. And now thinking about the future, which is, I think more and more the companies are going to be investing in this kind of like diverse teams in terms of like around AI ethics, right? So we, and even your guests from previous episodes, they talked about ethics, AI, which is companies are investing on this. So they are going to have organizations inside the company where they are going to be specialized in AI ethics. And this team is going to be is going to have people like psychologists, philosophers, physicians, data scientists, like all this mix, right? So more and more, you are going to have a more, you know, different teams and different people working in the same environment.
So talk a little bit about the technology. How do you envision this technology in 10 years?
Well, I think that things will be more automatized. We'll have, some kind of like help in a way. I'm thinking in a good way. I also think that we'll have more and more knowledge around privacy and implications. And I think we'll be more careful around technology as well, because we'll have more knowledge, hopefully. And then one suspicion that I have is like in 10 years, 15, maybe 20 years, we are going to pay for our privacy, right? So right now, we don't have much privacy, but in the future, I think companies will sell privacy packages for you. So kind of like how the phone companies, they have like packages of like, if you want to use 10 gigabytes, you pay X, 100 gigabytes, Y. So they are going to have privacy packages. Oh, if you want to have privacy, or if you want to remove your footprint from Facebook, WhatsApp, and this other company, you pay $100 a month. If you want to be removed from this and this and this, X amount. So the privacy is going to be the new thing. And another thing that I get asked all the time is around the data related jobs, the data science jobs, if we are going to be, if the automation are going to take our jobs, right? Which I don't think so. I think that the whole automation are going to make our jobs maybe easier in a way, but we will need the human aspect as well. So there is no way that the machine are going to take our jobs completely. Maybe our jobs are going to change a little bit, and then we have to adapt. But I don't think they are going to take our jobs in this area. Maybe in other areas, they will take their jobs. And then you have to recycle yourself. You have to adapt, right? But I don't think everybody's going to lose their jobs, and then the machines are going to take over the world. I don't think this is going to happen, especially in 10 years.
And this is the second part of the previous question. How do you see yourself in 10 years?
How do I see myself in 10 years? I think it's going to be very similar to what I'm doing now. The whole community work is such a huge part of who I am and the things that I love to do. So I'll be doing that. I don't know if it's going to be the same community or if it's going to be different, but there is this angle that I've been doing for 10 years or so. So I don't think in 10 years it's going to change. In terms of like my full-time job, I also don't think it's going to change much. If I look back 10 years ago, I was also doing data science work. I was not managing a team. I was not working with open source. It changed a little bit, but it didn't change much. I think I'll be I like to work with people as well. So I'll be working with people. I don't think I'll be doing coding all day long without talking to people or having people around me, because again, it's part of who I am. It's what I like to do. So I don't think my job is going to change much, hopefully, because I really like what I do.
Gabriela, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The Volume Podcast. Hi, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to get in touch with us, maybe make a suggestion or ask a question, please find us on Twitter @Volume Podcast. Thank you. We love it.